Hello, my name is Mayanka. I am accounts and finance trainer from Uplatz. Today we will discuss basic concept of income tax. We will discuss what is income tax and we will discuss about the some basic provisions of income tax. In this class, we will discuss the introduction of income tax. So now we will start our class introduction of income tax. Introduction of income tax. What is tax? First, before starting the discussion on the income tax, first we will discuss what is tax. What is tax? In the case of in the case of whether there is a business or when there is anything, the tax is considered as the cost of living. The cost, the tax is considered the cost of living in the society. The tax is an amount of expenses or it is a cost which is paid by the person, to live in this society. Any of the income earned by the person will pay tax on such income. The person will pay tax on such income, and the amount of tax which is levied by the government will use such amount of tax for the social services or for the social activities, just like for the example road, for the example road, maintenance of roads, maintenance of electricity, and some other monuments, for the some other monuments. So the tax are those costs which is charged by the government. The cost, the tax is a cost which is charged by the government from the person. This is the cost of living in the society. This is the cost of the living in the society. In the case, there are two type of taxes. There are two type of taxes. Number one is a direct tax and the indirect tax. There are two type of tax. Number one is direct tax and number two is indirect tax. The direct tax is a tax which is directly charged from the person. The tax which is directly paid by the taxpayer. The direct tax cannot be transferred or it cannot be shifted from one person to another person. And the another tax is indirect tax, the tax which is charged by government from the person other than actual taxpayer. Other than actual taxpayer means the indirect tax is a tax which is shifted from one person to another. The tax which is shifted from one person to another person, then such a tax will be known as indirect tax. Is that direct tax? Direct tax meaning if the tax which is levied, the tax which is levied directly on the income and the wealth of the person, when the tax which is applicable, the tax which is applicable on the income of the person and on the wealth of the person, then such tax will be known as direct tax. Such tax will be known as direct tax. In the case of direct tax, the amount of such tax is directly paid by the person. It is directly paid by the person who is related to such income or who is related to such wealth. He directly pay. He directly pay the amount of tax to the government. Is that in the case of direct tax, the burden of the tax cannot be shifted from one person to another person. In the case of direct tax, the burden of the tax cannot be shifted from one person to another person. For the example, for the example, Mr. Ram, Mr. Ram, he is a he is a businessman. He is a businessman and he earned 10 lakh rupees. He earned 10 lakh rupees. It will be considered as income of Mr. Ram, and Mr. Ram, he will pay tax on such income. He will pay tax on such income. So the tax which is paid by him, the tax paid by Ram, tax paid by Ram on such 10 lakh rupees, on such 10 lakh rupees will be considered as direct tax. Means such amount of tax cannot be shifted by Ram to the any other person. Such amount of tax cannot be shifted by Ram to the any other person, or any of the tax which is levied on the wealth of the person. Then such tax will also be known as direct tax, and the wealth tax will not be shifted by the person to the any other person. So this is the meaning of direct tax. For the example, income tax, the tax which is levied on the income of the person, it will be paid by such person only. It cannot be shifted by him to any other person. Then such tax will be known as direct tax. Indirect tax. What is the meaning of indirect tax? The indirect tax means the tax which is levied on the goods or on the services, is that the tax which is charged or which is levied on the price of goods or on the price of services. Then such a tax will be known as indirect tax. The tax which is levied on income and wealth, then such tax will be known as direct tax. And the tax which is levied on the price of goods or on the price of services, then such a tax will be known as indirect tax. Just like GST, Goods and Service Tax Act. Custom duty. Custom duty is applicable on goods. Custom duty is applicable on goods and services. In the case of direct tax, the burden of such tax can be shifted by the one person to the another person, and ultimately the burden of such tax is borne by the consumer. In the case of indirect tax, the burden of such tax is ultimately borne by the consumer. For the example, Mr. A, he purchased some goods, purchase goods from B, from B. He is a wholesaler, means A is a wholesaler. He is a wholesaler. And now the price of the price of a product which is purchased by A is 1000 rupees. He will pay such 1000 rupees plus tax on such good. For the example, the tax rate is 5%. Tax at the rate 5%. So that he will pay total amount 1000 into 5% tax. Sorry. Is equal to this into 5%. So it will be 50 rupees is the amount of tax. So Mr. Ram, he will pay for this product 1500 rupees. Now the cost to Mr. A, the cost or to Mr. A is this 1050 rupees cost to Mr. A. Now Mr. A sold such goods to C. So he will charge the following amounts. Number one, cost. The cost is 1050 plus profit. Plus he will charge the amount of profit also. For the example, profit is 250 rupees. So the amount is this plus this, and he will charge tax on such amount. Tax at the rate 5%. So the tax will be 65 rupees. So the total amount is which is paid by Mr. A. Sorry, Mr. C. Paid by C is 1,365 rupees. 1,365 rupees is paid by Mr. C. Mr. C. So in this case, Mr. A, who is the wholesaler, Mr. A, who is the wholesaler, he pay 50 rupees tax to Mr. A, sorry, to Mr. B. And when he sold such goods to Mr. C, he charged the amount of tax 65. Means he will recover 50 rupees. He will recover 50 rupees from such 65 rupees. And balance 15 rupees he will pay to government. He will pay to government. So the ultimate burden, the ultimate burden means the ultimate tax is borne by Mr. C, who is the consumer. Mr. C, who is the consumer, because Mr. C, he will not sold such good to the another person, he will consume it. So he will pay 1,365 rupees. So in this case, this is to be known as indirect tax. This is to be known as indirect tax, the tax which is levied on the price of goods or on the price of services, or the burden of such tax is transferred or it is shifted from one person to another person. Then such tax will be known as indirect tax. Then such tax will be known as indirect tax. Is that the tax on income and wealth? It is to be known as direct tax, and the tax on goods, oblique goods and services, known as indirect tax. So why are tax levied? Now we will discuss why there is the requirement to levy taxes. Why the taxes are levied? The reason The reason for levy of taxes is that they constitute the basic source of revenue to the government. The tax collection is one of the basic source of the government. The government collect the amount of tax from the person and utilize such amount for meeting the expense. The government collect the amount of tax from the person, and the amount which is collected by the government is used by them for the purpose of government expenses. For the example, the government charge, the total amount of tax which is charged by the government is 10 lakh. The government will use such amount of tax for the purpose of education, for the purpose of healthcare, for the purpose of infrastructure, for the purpose of infrastructure, and for the purpose of electricity services. So the government charges such amount of taxes for the purpose of government expenses, or for the purpose of public expenses, for the purpose of public expenses. So the government levy the taxes, and and this is the very important source, and this is the basic source of revenue to the government. So the main reason to levy of government is to collect such amount from the person and to use such amount for the public expenses and for the public benefit. Now we will discuss power to levy tax. Who is levy the amount of taxes? Means now we will discuss the power. Who has the power to levy the amount of taxes? The Indian Constitution, the Constitution of India in Article 265. The Article 265 of our Constitution contain the provision that Article 265 of Indian Constitution Act contain the provision about the levy of tax. Article 265 lays down that no tax shall be levied or collected except by the authority of law. If there is the authority of law, then such tax will be levied or collected. Otherwise, no one can levy any tax or collect any tax. If there is no any authority by the law or there is no any authority of the law, then no tax can be levied or collected by any person. If there is any tax and such a tax is required to be levied or collected, then the authority of the law is very much important. The tax shall be levied or collected by the authority of law. It is that for the purpose of this, there should be a proper law. There should be a proper law to collect or to levy the amount of tax. There should be proper law. In the case of income tax, there is a income tax law. In the case of GST, there is a GST law. So the law should be formed by the government. The law should be formed by the government to levy the tax and to collect the tax. To levy the tax and to collect the tax. According to our Constitution of India, the central government and the state government has the power to levy and collect the tax. The central government and the state government has the power to collect direct as well as indirect tax. The central government has the power to collect direct tax, and the state government and as well as central government both has the power to collect indirect tax. So the Constitution of India contains the provision or gives the power to levy and to collect the taxes, whether it is direct tax or indirect tax to the government, to the central government or to the state government. The central government or the state government, they have the power to levy the amount of direct tax as well as indirect tax, and they can collect the amount of direct tax and the indirect taxes. The parliament and the state legislature are empowered to make laws on the matter which are given in seventh schedule by the virtue of Article 246 of the Constitution of India. Is that the parliament and the state legislature has the power. They can make the law. They can make the law on the matters which are given or which are explained in seventh schedule of Article 246 of our Constitution. So the Parliament and the state legislature, they have the power to make the laws. To make the laws. Seventh schedule. The seventh schedule of Article 246. The seventh schedule of Article 246 contain three lists. As per the provision, the Parliament and the state legislature has the power to make the laws. In the respect of those matters which are explained or which are given in article which are given in seventh schedule to Article 246 of Constitution of India. So the seventh schedule to Article 246 contains three lists. There are three lists, and these three lists contain the matters. These three lists contain the matters in the respect of which the Parliament and the state legislature has the power to draft the laws. Means there are three lists. Number one is union list, number three is state list, and number three is concurrent list. The union list, state list, and the concurrent list contain the matters in the respect of which central government, means Parliament and the state legislature has the power to make the laws. Number one is union list. The union list is a list which will contain those matters. The union list is a list which will contain those letters in the respect of which only Parliament or only the central government has the power to make the laws. The union list is a list which contains those matters in the respect of which in the respect of which central government or the parliament has the power to make the laws. State government does not have the power to make the law in the respect of those matters which are given in union list. Number two is state list. Number two is state list. State list is a list in the respect of which, or the state list is a list which will contain those matters. State list is a list which will contain those matters in the respect of which the state government, only the state government has the power to make the laws. State list is a list which contains those matters in the respect of which only the state government has the power to make the laws. Concurrent list. Concurrent list is a list which will contain those matters which are not mentioned in union list or in the state list, in the respect of which central government as well as state government, means parliament and the state legislature, both have the power to make the laws. Both have the power to make the laws. Is that in the case of union list, only central government or the parliament has the power to make the laws. In the case of state list, only state government has the power to make the laws. And in the case of concurrent list, both government has the power to make the laws. Number one, union list. The parliament has the exclusive power. Parliament has the exclusive power to make the law on the matter which are contained in union list. Is that the union list contain those matter on which only the parliament will, the only on which the parliament has the power to make the laws. State list. The state list is a list which provide the exclusive power, or the state list is a list which will contain those matter on which will contain those matter in the respect of which only state legislature has the power to make the laws. The state legislature has the power to make the law. Concurrent list, where both parliament as well as state legislature has the power to make the law. So, on the basis of such discussion, we have understand introduction of income tax. What is income tax? We have understand direct tax and indirect tax. We have discussed the power to levy the tax, power to levy of income tax, and we have also discussed what is the requirement to levy tax, and we have discussed list the list which are given in 7th schedule to Article 246 of our Constitution. So, on the basis of such discussion, we have understand basic concept about the means. We have understand the introduction of income tax. There are some other classes of a basic concept of income tax. Before understanding other provisions of income tax, it is very much important to understand the basic concepts of income tax. Thank you so much for watching this video. Okay, bye bye and have a nice day.